Welcome to Coffee and Keys, where we blend our expertise and personal experiences to unlock your awareness of the real estate industry.
They're the best.
Here they are.
And now, here's your hosts, Darlene Kemp and Crystal Jacques.
Well, it feels like it's been forever, but it hasn't, has it?
Time is flying.
It is. Can you believe that?
2025 is going fast.
I know. I can't believe that we were, in almost a quarter into it?
Yeah. We're still having snow here. I still got snow outside. We just had 10 inches, almost a record here.
I will be in your neck of the woods in a few days. So
there you go. Okay, cool.
I think
it'll be gone because now I think it's going to go up to 70 this weekend.
Oh, my goodness.
Right?
I'm so
Talk
heartbroken.
I'm sure you are.
Let's see. What have I done while it was snowing in Virginia? I went to a spring training baseball game. It was 86 degrees out there.
Okay. Keep it coming.
Done some hiking, done some walking.
Yeah. You did it in the desert, though, and not in the snow.
Not in the snow. That's right. Beautiful days.
Awesome.
But as you know, I get to experience both sides of the coin. So
that's true. Awesome. Well, again, it's back to the podcast and trying to figure out, what we think that our audience wants to know about or wants to hear about, right?
I know. So what we're going to keep doing is educating our audience out there like we promised to do when we started the podcast.
Exactly. That was our main goal, was just to kind of educate people on what the possibilities are, right? What's really going on, what's the possibilities, and really keep people excited about buying homes and different ways that they could purchase. So we figured we'd do it on renovations this week.
Awesome.
It's something that I think a lot of people just don't even know to talk about, right? I mean, the market has been such a frenzy and things selling so fast that I think people have just forgot the options are out there for them on this particular program. And I think,
you know what? The question is, and we say renovation loan and we move right into it.
Yeah.
But I got 5 questions for you, Darlene.
And I may have a few back at you, but okay, that sounds great.
So renovation loans. And I know that I recently had a hard to sell listing, which is always a challenge for me. Yeah. The easy ones are nice. You put it on the market, it's gone in a few hours,
right.
But I do love the challenge of my job. That's one reason why I do it. And so I had a hard to sell listing come up, and I was talking to you about it. You said, well, why don't we do some advertising in your listing with a renovation loan? And it was good. It turned out that I think that was one of the selling points. The person that purchased it, the buyer that purchased the house, did not use a renovation loan. But the fact that they could walk in and say, well, I could do this and do that. And we had the flyers in there. And, when the agents called me, I talked about, well, why don't you do a renovation loan? So this is a good topic. So I got 5 questions for you on this topic. You ready?
All right. Keep them coming.
All right.
Sure.
So
Question
5
1.
questions. Don't answer yet. We'll go step by step to answer them. Okay. The first one is, what is a renovation loan?
All right. That's an easy one.
The second one is, what are the types of renovation loan? Can you believe that it's just not straightforward? There's types of them.
There's several depending on your situation. Absolutely.
Okay. So who can do a renovation loan? Who qualifies to do one? Does every buyer qualify to do one? Does every home qualify to have one done?
Great questions. Great questions.
And here's a question that honestly I didn't know the answer to. Is what happens after you close? Because you have this great loan, you close on a house that needs help. Mm-hmm. What happens after you close? Who contacts
most of the time it goes to closing, and then we figure it's done, and
we're all gone.
Not done yet. Not yet.
So what happens after you close? And question number 5, and the reason why we're doing this podcast. why aren't buyers using renovation loans?
I know it's a great product, especially in today's world. You know, as an agent, that the houses that show like a model home, the ones, because we talked about staging and what you need to do to your house to really make it sell, and those are the ones that are going fast. But there's some sellers that just can't afford to do the renovations up front. They have to sell them as is, right? And they don't want to do any repairs and things like that. So those are the houses that are kind of staying on the market a little longer.
And isn't that a great opportunity for the buyer?
Perfect opportunity. Correct. Because guess what? They can make that house their own and not just move into a house that had somebody else's style to it.
Right.
They can take and turn that house into something that they truly envisioned. They didn't just, you walk into a house and it's dated in the 70s or the 80s, and this old outdated kitchen and bathrooms and even the flooring, and and people usually will look at it and say, no, can't do that.
Right.
And the other problem is they look at it and they say, I'm spending everything that I have for down payment and closing cost.
I can't.
How would I ever be able to afford to remodel or to put all this work into this house? I just can't do it. And then sometimes you get like a home inspection and there's some things that that need to be done, and the seller's not willing to do it. And the house is worth it. It's got a good value to it, but you don't have the cash to do it after closing. So what do you do? So that's really where that renovation loan comes in handy. Is that renovation loan is a loan that you can use not only to purchase the home, but finance in any repairs that you want to have done afterwards. Yeah. So you don't have to worry about coming out of pocket with all the repair money. You can build it right into the loan.
A couple of the advantages are, especially in a competitive market, these homes are sitting on the market. So there's no competition to get them.
Right.
Right. I can't say there's none, because we're educating
You have
people.
a little more of a chance. Right.
Right. So you might get some closing cost assistance, because the seller wants to sell the house. That's why it's on the market.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of
potential
advantages. Is it in the area that you want to be in? And it just needs to be updated, because they have loans for that.
Right. And that's what we're hearing. The inventory is still so low, right? It
is.
There's still low inventory. So when a house comes on the market, if it happens to be a house that's in their perfect location, then they walk in there going, this is not me. And then they think that there's nothing else they can do about that, right? Or they find this gorgeous house, but it's in a location that's a mile away from where they want to be, or, 50 minutes from where they want to be. Right. It's just not in the right location. So this is just a good opportunity where you could look in neighborhoods and locations that you really want to be in, because they say that that's really the number one concern now for home buyers. I think I was reading in the Hampton Roads Realtors magazine that that's one of the things that they really want is location of the property, close to family, close to friends, close to work. They just, really looking at that for reasons to buy. So they get these houses. Location. Yeah, absolutely. And they get in these houses and they either can't afford them, or they can't, these houses that show like model homes are the ones where people are bidding emotionally, and they're bidding, over appraised value or over list price and things. So they just feel like they're out of the market. But if you can take a buyer and say, hey, well, what if you walk into this house and I know it may look like it was, still has 80s style in it, and a little outdated. But if you can vision that before and after, as you're looking at the homes, it gets to be a little bit more exciting, because you can say, wow, I really can make this house my own. Right? Or you go into a house and you're going, okay, yeah, it may have just been remodeled, but you don't like anything that they put in there, the carpet, the flooring, it's totally not your style. So you can just use these programs to update the style and make it your own home. So once you get the buyer to really kind of visualize the possibilities, and I think that's the hardest part. And I think that's one reason we're not seeing a lot more of these loans out there, is because the buyers walk in and they don't understand how they can look at it as a rehabbed home. They're looking at it in the state that it is. We talked about that before in our podcast about staging and things that people are buying emotionally. So they walk into this house that needs all this work, and in their mind they're going, I can't live here the way it is, and I don't know how I'd ever begin to start paying for renovations. It's just not going to be a fit. Right. But then if they could walk in and say, wait a minute, I've looked on Pinterest, I've looked on that house app, I've looked at these, and I've looked at some before and after pictures, and wow, you can take a house, the kitchen that looks just like this, that's old and outdated, and I can make it modern and my style. And I can build the cost right into the loan. And again, we talked about rule of thumb for every $10,000, you're looking at maybe $60 an increase in payment. So $50,000 can do a world of a difference in a renovation and remodel.
Right.
And it really doesn't affect the cost as much as far as the payment. So it's just showing people and educating people what the possibilities are. And I think the loan could become very popular if more people started talking about it. So
right,
why
and using them.
Yeah,
I've had a few clients that, and it's funny because us as agents sometimes we're very tunnel vision because we listen to our client. I mean, I want this, I want that. Yeah. And so then we can become very tunnel vision. But then when I'm talking to other agents or talking to you, and I think on one of them, I was out there with this buyer that we had, and we were going from house to house and house. And, I check in with you, give you an update. We saw 7 homes today. And, and you're like, one of them I was describing, and you said, I said, the HVAC was so rusted. It was like humming, and, the windows wouldn't close and they wouldn't stay open, some of them. And you said, she could use a renovation loan. And, I was like, so I went back to my buyer and I said, let's go back to that house that you liked. It was in the location that she wanted. She liked it. It just had, an HVAC that was rusted so bad. And you can ask the seller to replace it, but how do you know they're going to? Prepare yourself.
Yeah.
So just kind of opened my mind, and she ended up buying it, and we ended up doing a renovation loan.
We did.
And
that's
then
it had the new windows and everything.
Yes, it had new windows, new HVAC system, new hot water heater. I mean, all the things that are the big ticket items on a house, and she loved that. So she didn't
have to worry about doing it later.
She didn't have to do it.
Than that, she wouldn't have to worry about having to come up with the money to do it when the HVAC goes out or the hot water heater goes out. So it's already been taken care of, and she can relax.
The ironic thing was her life ended up taking a turn, and she ended up getting married and having a baby, and so she ended up selling it the following year, and I think she doubled her equity in it. Just from having,
because people now that work was done, and she didn't have to worry.
That's right.
And now when you go to sell it, and I just love it because in today's market, with the low inventory, if you sit down with a buyer and say, what's important to you, you get this big long list, and now you feel like you're looking for a needle in a haystack. Right. So you're going with this low inventory, and then of course when you find one that fits, you have to jump on it, because everybody else is looking for the same perfect home.
Right.
But if you can understand that, hey, these are all the things that you want, keep in mind, these things, you can change a house. Most of the homes today are in neighborhoods where all the houses are kind of the same, right?
Right.
So you go into one and it looks like a model home, and you go to the other one, it has the same bones. It just hasn't been updated.
Right.
Well, if you get them to understand, you can make this house look like that house. Just doing a couple of renovations. So just getting them to understand that there are options. Now you're not looking for a needle in the haystack, right? You're just looking for a house in the location that has the flow that you want, knowing that you can make it your own, and that you don't have to settle for somebody else's style. You get to actually make it your own. So it's exciting to me to think about it that way. And the fact that, when we go to qualify them, that we're going to qualify them based on the sales price and the cost of the renovations, and then their payment's going to be based on that, and they don't have to come out of pocket with all the different cash for the repairs. So,
well, that's awesome. Okay, so now that we know what a renovation loan is, what are the types of renovation loans? I only know a couple, so you're going to have to educate me on this.
There's actually a lot of different ways to accomplish a renovation loan, and it really depends on the property and the condition of the property's in, and it depends on exactly what you want to have done, right? So most people have heard of an FHA 203K renovation loan, right?
Yep.
And they have two different styles, from a streamlined renovation to a full-blown renovation. In other words, an FHA 203K, there's really no minimum rehab. So if you just want to come in and do carpets and paint and make it your own, it's easy to do there. Or they have the full blown, which means you can actually tear it down to the foundation and rebuild the whole house.
No way.
If you needed to. Yeah. You could gut the whole interiors. You can open it back up. You could basically have a new construction home with that program. So you have your extremes. And there's not just FHA, there's some conventional, On the conventional loan program, the exciting thing there is you can put things in like pools. Not so much.
No way.
So if you've got
you can put a pool in on a renovation loan,
construction renovation loan, yes. You bought a house and they're going, I want a house with a garage, and I can't find one in my price range with a garage. You can put a garage in.
I didn't know you could do a pool. I'm
on the conventional, not the FHA.
Yeah.
But again, that's why there's different programs out there that you can do. I mean, you want a backyard that, let's say that somebody's, outdoor people, and the house itself doesn't matter as much as the backyard does. Mm-hmm. And you can't find a house with a pool. Yeah, you could actually take a look at it, and you could, on the conventional loans, you could put in the pool and the whole backyard barbecue and all that stuff in that particular loan. So it just depends. The loan will depend on what you really want to have done to that. What are your key items that you want to have? On the FHA, streamline is really easy as long as there's no, really no permits. There's no walls being moved. There's no structural things that need to be done. Mm-hmm. Then that's just it's just an FHA loan with a little money set aside for some renovations after closing.
So here's a common issue. Is there a renovation loan that you can replace the roof?
Sure.
Wow.
Sure.
So that's a common issue because nobody ever wants to. I've sold many homes with a bad roof.
Right. Well, and here's the thing too. It's great to work on a purchase, but I know Sarah, my daughter, I think we met her during our Christmas one, right? Mm-hmm. She actually did the 203K on one of her last homes. So she didn't do it when she bought it. But after she'd had it there, she did a refinance on a 203K and completely renovated her kitchen. It didn't even look like the same one anymore. It was beautiful after it was done.
I listed that house.
Yeah, that's right. And,
she
definitely got the equity.
Amazing.
All new windows, new roof, all new flooring. It practically looked like a new house. $50,000 is all she did.
That was it?
That was it. She did the bathrooms and stuff herself, but all new kitchen and to where she actually relocated, the sink and stuff. It wasn't just, updated kitchen cabinets. It was, she completely redesigned. And with
I had to new roof, cancel all of my appointments the day I listed her house because I think I was she had over 20 offers on that house. And
it turned out beautifully. Yeah. So she made her money back.
Yeah.
And plus some, because now when she was ready to put her house on the market, it showed like one of those model homes.
Oh my
where people
gosh,
walked in
phenomenal.
And emotionally wanted to move in and buy it. But if you could take that home before it was renovated and get a buyer to say, look, here's what it was before and here's what it is after, you can buy this house. You can put that $50,000 in rehab into the loan, and you've got a beautiful home.
So she purchased a home that needed to be updated.
Right.
And
again,
she
that when you walked in,
it
it had never been updated when you did. So she bought a house that was, there was nothing really wrong with it when she first bought it. It looked nice, but it was outdated but she made it, and then she just realized she could do so much better. And the thought process come because she knew she needed a new roof. And so then she was thinking, well, I'm going to have to take out a loan for a new roof anyway, because that can get a little expensive and costly. The windows needed some new windows. It still had the old wood windows in there. Mm-hmm. So she's like, well, if I'm going to do this, I might as well throw everything in there, right? And it didn't make that much of a difference when you rolled that into a normal loan and normal payment. So,
So she was able to refinance it after being in the house for a while. To do these renovations. I only saw it for the first time with the renovations. I never saw it before she renovated
beautiful.
it.
Yeah. We're actually having an event where we're going to show some before and after pictures on Saturday. And that's where it really gets exciting to say, wow, if I'm a buyer and I see something like that, all of a sudden when I'm looking at a house, I'm going to look at the potential and not just as it is. Right. And like you said, then you're not looking for a needle in the haystack to fit somebody's personality just as they are. As long as they understand that this, they have to know what their personality is going in, right? Because the minute you buy that, because the minute you buy that house, then, you know, you have to be ready to let everybody know exactly what you want to have done with it. So that's really the key on getting these things closed and getting them closed quickly and efficiently. And, you know, we can still close them in, you know, 45 days. You know, it's really, a lot of people are
wow. So you
afraid
don't,
of it,
I know that.
as long as you have your ducks in a row and you do everything the way that it's supposed to be done. Absolutely.
So, yeah, I know that as a buyer's agent, because I'm on both sides, as a buyer's agent, you say renovation loan, normally the listing side is
that's too much
rolling
trouble.
their eyes and we'll never get closed. But you're saying on the average, and I do know with the ones that I've done, I think the one that we're talking about, that we originally started talking about, the one that she had the HVAC and the windows done, we closed in 30 days. I think we even closed in less than 30 days, come to think of it.
And you can. The hardest part about this loan, and it really is, it's an FHA 203K is an FHA loan that has a renovation loan attached to it, kind of like a construction loan, which is actually another renovation loan that you can do. You can just do a construction loan on the house and then refinance it to a regular loan, but that's a bigger topic. Anyway, you know, it's really just an FHA loan. So when I'm qualifying somebody, I'm going to qualify them as if they're just going to go buy the house as is, right? So I'm going to tell you as the agent and as the buyer, this is how much you qualify for. And remember, when you're qualifying for a payment, right? You're really not qualifying for a sales price. You're qualifying for a payment. This is what your monthly payment you qualify for. Oh. Now, a lot of times we translate that into, this means you qualify for a sales price at this, so you know what to go out there and show them, right?
Right.
So if I give you a payment and I say, now they qualify for a $400,000 house, right? Well, there's not a whole lot in 400 that fits their needs, right? But what if you can look at things that need repair, need a little bit of help? So you actually are looking anywhere from 300 to 400. They found a house at 300,000. It's in the location that they want. Maybe they just need to add a mother-in-law suite onto it or something, right? So you can actually add that in there. Their max qualifying is the payment for $400,000. So when we qualify them, it's not for a sales price, it's for the sales price plus the cost of the rehab. So those are the things that you look at as an agent when you're out there working with a buyer showing homes. Is when I tell you they're qualified for $400,000, you may need to expand that to not look at houses from $350 to $400, right? You may want to say, okay, let's look at houses that are listed for $250 to $400, as long as it's in the location that they like, because now you can make that house their own as long as you leave them some room to do the rehab work. So it just opens up that possibility of property out there for them, and they're qualified for that max. So, yeah, it's really not that hard of a loan program. We qualify them the same way we do any normal loan. And when it comes to the construction part, the hardest thing that the buyer has to do is make decisions on what they want to do to the property.
God, right, that's fun. Right?
That's the hardest part.
I'm always doing that.
Right. So that's why I always like to talk to people ahead of time before they even find a house that they may consider a rehab loan in, is because they have to kind of know what they like. You know, they have to be able to walk in and say, okay, I'm okay with this kitchen, but this one needs a new roof, or I need this, or I need that. So, you know, you're just using some rule of thumbs in the initial process to think, okay, well, this may cost $50,000, you know, in rehab. Here's what the sales price is. Okay, you qualify for that maximum. So once you get that negotiations and the contracts done, then that next step is really just to say, okay, here's what you've negotiated for the sale. It leaves you this much money left over. And if we're doing like a 203K, we can have like the HUD consultant meet out there. And basically what I'm doing as a lender is saying, okay, as the HUD consultant goes out there, I'm going to tell the HUD consultant they're qualified up to about $50,000 to $60,000 in rehab. So that's the dollar amount. So the work write-up guy is going to meet them out there and tell them what's required to be done to get the house to meet minimum standards.
So you're throwing in a new mix here. A new person is in this transaction now. So a HUD consultant. So that probably brings us to question number 3. Who can do a renovation? And what do all homes qualify for a renovation? I mean, you can have, look, we brought the most beautiful home, but you know, I still wanted the new bathroom and I mean, do those homes qualify for renovations? And when you do, the person qualifies, the home qualifies. Now you got a third person in the mix, a HUD consultant.
Called consultant. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Okay, so any home can qualify for a renovation loan because remember, we can take the house all the way down to the foundation. So whether it's termite damage, whether it's, new roof, windows, a whole gut job, the house can still qualify for that loan, right? Mm-hmm. But you and I both know that when you're out there looking at homes, there's some homes that have to meet a loan's minimum standards, right? Mm-hmm. We talk about the FHA loan. They're going to look at things like, was it built prior to 78? Does it have lead base? Is the base lead base peeling? That's an issue, So do they have a deck that's rotted out with no railings on it? That could be a hazard, a danger to somebody, right? So it could be that you go in and electrical wires are hanging out of, outlets and stuff, and that needs to be fixed. Or, let's say the septic tank's not working, or it needs to be pumped, or they need a new one, right? So what happens is when we do this, we get the contract on it, right? And again, it doesn't have to be scary. So normally the buyer and the agent will get together and they'll find a subcontractor or a general contractor that they like to work with, right? That they can trust a little bit to help them give bids for their project. Because most of the time, the contractors, it needs to be one general contractor. That general contractor will subcontract all the different items like electrical, plumbing, just like they would on a building of home. One builder takes care of all the subcontractors. So you normally have one general contractor you want to work with. And then the lender, depending again on the loan program, if it's more than cosmetics, normally they're going to want that HUD inspector to go out there. And basically he's just trained to say, okay, these are the items that are required to bring it up to normal standards. If we do this, this, and this, so out of the batch of money that the buyer has, the first batch of the money has to go to bring the house to standards.
Which generally, it's usually that's picked out when you walk in the house.
Yeah, I mean, most agents have been shown, this won't pass a VA loan, this won't pass an FHA loan. We need to do this, we need to do that, right? Yeah. So experience kind of tells you that. So the HUD inspector will come in and kind of give you a ballpark rule of thumb on what the cost of that would be to bring it to standards, and then tell them, okay, you have $30,000 left. What would you like to do with it? You want to remodel the bathroom? You want to put in floors? You want to do windows? Kind of what do you want to do with that money? So the key is that the buyer needs to decide what they'd want to have done sooner rather than later, because you can't move forward on that loan until you know exactly what's going to be done. Because typically, right, when you get a ratified contract, one of the first things we do is order an appraisal to make sure the house is going to meet appraised value. Right. Well, we order the appraisal on those construction financing too, except for that appraiser is going to give us two values. Oh. So the first value is as is. Okay. So the appraiser is going to make sure that the value of the as is, that you're not paying any more than the as-is value for that, or that we're not lending you any more than the as-is value. You can always pay more, cash out of pocket, doesn't get financed in. Right. But it's going to meet that as-is value. Then he's going to give us another appraised value, after improved value. And like a 203K, you can actually borrow up to 110% of the after improved value if you wanted to. Wow. For those rehabs. So he's going to give us the two values. But he can't give us a value on it until he knows what's going to be done in the house. And so the first part of that amount is what has to be done. What has to be done. To bring it up to standards. What the appraiser requires to be done. And a lot of times we'll have our termite done right there too. Right. So that if there's termite damage or if there's moisture damage or joist, and we see that a lot around here, right? That work gets put into the loan, and it could make a difference on whether or not we're going to go a streamline and just do some remodeling, or guess what? Now you've got some issues that are structural. We have to take this a full blown. Right. So those are all things that we can walk somebody through. So the key is that once they find a house that they like, we let them know how much they have. And then we can start that process of, negotiating the cost of the bids and what you want to have done to the house and what we can finance in. And, once that happens, we order the appraisal and it moves along just like any other loan. We've got all their documentation, they're approved, it's clear to close, right? So now we're getting ready to close, but the work hasn't been done on the property yet, right? So they don't have to. That's the great thing about sellers not worried about renovation loans, because it can close and the work doesn't get done till afterwards. So what the lender does is they pay the funds for the purchase price, right? And they pay all the fees that are there. And then any of the money for the rehab is put into a separate little escrow account set aside. And then, the builder will issue what's called a draw. Well, he'll have a draw schedule. So he's paid based on the work that's completed. So again, depending on the loan program, some loan programs will allow them to have 50% of the material cost up front. And then, everything is broken down in material and labor so that we can set that draw schedule up for them. But that money is set aside. And as the work is completed, once he hits a certain stage, then he'll say, okay, I need a draw. I need some money so that I can keep going on the project, right? So then the HUD inspector will go out there and make sure that work that he's giving a draw on has truly been done. And then we'll go to the title company and make sure that there's no other liens that have been filed on the house. And the builder or contractor will have to sign a lien waiver that he's paid all the contractors that have been in so far. And then we'll release that draw to the builder. And, again, the borrower has to authorize the draw as well. And then that he just keeps getting paid until the end. And then once the work is completed, a lot of times there may even be some contingency in that draw fund where if they needed any change orders or anything like that, they could use it towards, something, appliances, whatever that might be. Or any leftover money can just go to pay down the principal balance of the loan. So it's pretty much a normal, regular loan process. The only difference is after closing, that money set aside as the builder's working on the property. So we don't pay the builder all the money up front. We've heard those horror stories, right? You pay the contractor and all of a sudden he's off on the job and disappears, right? But it's also another reason that on some loan programs, they require that HUD or inspector or work write-up guy to go out there, and he'll meet with your builder and they'll discuss it. But they just want to know that if this builder, somehow something happens to this builder, that you bid a price that is industry standard so you can have somebody else come in.
So that brings us to question number 4, because we kind of flowed into that. So, and again, we made this comment and it's true. Once in a normal transaction, when you close, at least I do become friends with my clients and, hey, you want to go out and have a glass of wine or whatever, let's do dinner. But when you have this kind of transaction, I don't think I ever thought to ask, how's it going? Now, you do such a fantastic job in guiding them after when we close and you're in this kind of loan. So we don't, as agents, don't usually get involved,
Right.
But
you're pretty much done. You've done your deal, found a ready, willing, and able buyer, right?
Right.
And they were able to get the house, and now it's kind of up to them on the rehab. That's the fun
on
part.
The rehab side.
Not
so when you close,
easy to live through a rehab, but once it's done, it's so worth it.
I know. So when we close, that's when the work happens, and it makes sense because before that, it's somebody else's house. It's not your house. So the work starts to be done after you go to closing.
Right. Yeah. And most loan programs require that you have to start within 30 days. Now, some, like we have some other unique programs like energy efficient and things like that they want those to be started like right away.
Right.
But most of the time the work has to be started within 30 days, and they like it to be finished within 6 months. And let's face it, a new construction house is normally finished within 6 months, right?
Right.
So typically we give a time frame, and that's one of the things that work write-up guy and the builder will do is they'll get together not only for the draw schedule, but to kind of find out how long this process should take or would take. There's always, it's construction. Sometimes, especially if you're dealing with, additions or things like that, there's weather that can hold you up. There's all sorts of things that can hold you up. So, things do happen. So the key there is just keep communications open.
So it's not unforgiving.
Yeah. No. Okay. It's just a matter of communicating. The lender just wants to know that, hey, if all of a sudden you're not returning phone calls, now you're not making payments on the house, or the work's not getting done, then they have the option to take those funds and pay down the principal balance of the loan. But as long as you're communicating with
it's usually
the
easy.
Lender and the builder and all the parties, then, we'll work hand in hand to get it taken care of for them.
So I have a couple of clients. I have one listing getting ready to go on the market, and he is an actual contractor. So he's doing a lot of the work himself before we list. I mean, he's done some beautiful work. And that's one reason why I'm going out there to see how everything's going, because he's fantastic, you know.
Yeah.
In these situations, if I had a client that is a licensed contractor like he is, can you do the work yourself?
Most lenders don't like that.
Okay.
Because it can go on forever. And you can't give a buyer cash back. So if you're paying him, then yeah. They don't like sweat equity, because what if you walk off the job or get injured and you can't do the job? You've got to be able to pay somebody to finish it for you. So they normally don't like self-help, self-improvement, things like that. Now, you know, you do have to have a general contractor that looks over the whole job, and you can use any general contractor that you want to, as long as they're licensed to do the job that they're doing, as long as they've got the proper insurance. And then we have to vet them. We're going to call their past, you know, they like to have like 3 referrals just to make sure that, hey, this guy's got a good reputation. He's been doing this. Okay, we're going to vet him a little bit. So we do have to, as a lender, approve the builder. But, you know, if you've got somebody, you know, who's, you know, a subcontractor does this or that, you know, they can choose their general contractor. The general contractor can certain subcontractors, but again, that's the agreement between you. The general contractor is responsible for the job. So if you have a buddy that does electrician and you want your general contractor to use your buddy that does electrician, you can all say, hey, can you talk to him about that bid? But it's up to the general contractor, because he's responsible for that work.
So where does the general contractor come from? Who chooses
anybody
this?
That the buyer will choose the general contractor. They can use who they want.
Is there a list?
Again, as a lender, you could get lists, you could get referrals. But again, the responsibility, because we don't want to tell a buyer they have to use this person or have to use that person. They get to choose the builder, just like they get to choose their agent, or they get to choose their closing or settlement company. They get to choose who they want to use to do their home inspection, right? So they get to choose that person. We're just going to vet them and make sure that they fit our minimum guidelines. Wow. So they can use anybody they want to, yeah. So if you've got somebody who really says, oh, I love this idea that I can walk into my house the day that I move into it and it's done my style, and I'm going to buy a house and use a renovation loan. The best thing to do is just start interviewing contractors that you think you would like to work with.
Do you have to have your general contractor before you close, or can you choose them after you close?
No, you have to have them right up front, because we have to have, so if you're dealing with a loan program and you're having the work write-up guy go out there, then you can have your general contractor go out there and give a bid, and then the work write-up guy has to give a bid, because we make sure it's standard. Or if you're doing cosmetic stuff and you're just getting, you know, two or three bids from general contractors, as long as their bids are bidding on the exact same thing, so we can look at them apples to apples. They're going to break it down material and labor because of the way we do our draw schedules. So, you know, you don't have to take the lowest bid either. You can take either one of them. We just want to make sure that when we're reviewing the loan file, that, you know, some contractors know how to bid and some don't. And the last thing you want as a buyer is to have somebody underbid the project and then walk off in the middle of it. Once they get the money, they're saying, I can't finish. This is costing me out of pocket. So, you know, that's one reason we want to have multiple bids to look at, or have the work write-up guy and the builder give us bids to know that, you know, it's not somebody who has underbid it. So, you know, it's the other problem with self-help and things like that. If something happens to you and you can't fit it, you got to have enough money in that loan to pay a contractor to finish the job. So that's why most of them will require a general contractor to overview it. And then that way, you know, if he's got a subcontractor that can't finish the job, he can come in and find another subcontractor to do that part of the job. So you can work with them. But most of the time, they don't like self-help.
Well, that brings us to question number 5.
Okay. What's question number 5
so
already?
It's a fantastic idea.
I love it.
Why aren't buyers using renovation loans? I mean, we even covered that you can buy the most perfect house. I mean, there is no perfect house, but you know, it gets pretty close, and you can still use a renovation loan in that house. Why aren't buyers using them?
I think there's several reasons why we haven't seen them. Number one, the market has been such a frenzy that you're right. It's just like taking the highest bid or taking the thing that's most simple, right? But what that has done is that's forced a lot of people out of the market. Right. And I think that now we're seeing a little bit of shift. Now we're starting to see that some of the, you know, not so fancy, call it ugly homes, whatever you want to call them, they're sitting on the market a little longer. I think it's just a fear factor that maybe some lenders haven't been talking about it. And to be honest with you, if you choose a lender that's not used to doing them and they don't understand the steps and the processes, it could take a long time, because it's kind of like building a house, right? Mm-hmm. You can't put your roof on until you have a strong foundation, and then you have to have your framing put in, and then you put the roof on, right? And then, you have to make sure the house is secured before you start, putting your drywall in and doing the painting. You want to make sure that, there's no rain coming through the windows, right? So there's a step and there's a process where things have to be done, right? Mm-hmm. If you're building a house, you want to make sure you have all those, electricals and plumbing done before you put the insulation and the drywall in. So the same thing with any loan program or anything like that. There's a process to it. So you want to make sure that you're doing it in the right order. And the biggest thing is really just educating the buyer and the buyer's agent right up front before they even put in a contract. Mm-hmm. What the steps are going to be and what you need to do. Because if you have a buyer that thinks he has 30 days to pick out and decide what he wants to do on the house, you've just delayed that closing for 30 days.
Right.
So, the key is just educating more people up front. And the other aspect of it is it's a little scary, right? Because you're starting to get into the unknowns. It's exciting, but it's a little scary to think, I'm buying this house as it is. Is it really going to look like this when I'm done? Mm-hmm. So there is that fear factor there, a little bit scared factor. And then it's just really just agents not understanding that it's an option and that it's out there and it's not as difficult as people need to make it, right? If you follow the processes, you get educated right up front, and you do all the things you need to do in the beginning, it can flow and close just as soon as any regular loan can. Now, if you spend 30 days finding a contractor, decide who you want to get the work, if you spend all that time, then yes, it could be a huge delay. So from the beginning, if I were a listing agent, that's what I'd say. Hey, by the way, yeah, we love the idea of doing a renovation loan on this house because my seller doesn't want to do anything. It's perfect for a seller that doesn't want to take a risk on doing repairs and not having the buyer close, right? And that's kind of scary if you're selling a house and you need a new roof. Well, you spend the money to put the roof on thinking you're going to pay for it at closing, and now you lose the buyer. That's scary for a seller too, right?
Gosh, how many times does that happen?
So these renovation loans could actually be a benefit to the seller and have everything done afterwards. And then the buyer gets to kind of control how it's going to be done and who gets to do it and what kind of things they get to put on there, right? Mm-hmm. So it is a win-win for both the buyer and the seller. But anything that is not normal and typical is a little scary. So the key is to make sure that you're asking the right questions up front, and that you understand the process, and that you're dealing with people who understand the process and done them. And I know one of the things, Sarah and I did last year, we've done a couple of these renovation loans, we've done a couple of construction loans. And what we really did is sit down and really look at the processes and say, this is what really makes a difference. This is how we need to educate the buyer. This is the steps that we need to take. We need to have that builder. That builder that you choose is key. We need to get him approved as soon as possible. And if you have a builder before you even have a house, we can get him approved up front. We don't have to wait until you're under contract to get a builder approved. If you've got somebody you like, let's get them on our approved builders list. Let's get the information in. Let's get that out of the way. So as you're looking at houses, even if you find a house that's perfect and you don't need a renovation loan, that's fine. We've got a builder on our approved list. Maybe the next person will need him. Right. So the key is just to do it in the steps in the process and understanding it a little bit. But I think the reason people aren't doing it is they just haven't been educated that it's a possibility. And then when buyers are looking at houses, if they're not looking at it through the lens of this could be a renovation, they don't see the possibilities. They don't see what it could be, and sometimes that just takes a little encouraging and pointing in the right place. Hey, you want to figure out your style. Sarah used to say, her best friend was Pinterest and that Houzz app because, and then on that Houzz, Houzz, I think it is, when you start identify pictures you like, it creates a style for you.
Oh, really?
So if you have a style,
I didn't know that.
It's kind of cool. So if you have most people, it's all about communication. They don't know how to explain to you what their style is. Mm-hmm. If you come to somebody and say, well, what do you want? 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, a garage. That really doesn't have anything to do with the style of the home. Right. They don't know how to communicate that. It could be, I want something opened. I want something airy. I want something contemporary. I want something that's a farmhouse. So There's a lot of different styles that are out there. And so once they look and determine, hey, this is my style. Now, when they're going out and looking at properties, they're not looking at it in the style that it's in.
Right.
They're looking at the flow of it and saying, I could make this my style because they've seen the pictures and seen the possibilities. And I think that just too many people aren't looking at possibilities. They're just looking at the house. So.
I've said, I walk in with the client and, we're kind of buzzing around the house. And then the client says, well, I'd like this house if I could move that wall. And I'm like, well, if you're moving walls before you buy it, you shouldn't buy it. Let's move on. I mean,
but now you
can. But now,
if you look at it with the possibilities,
yes,
then it is a possibility, right?
Yeah.
Especially in a market where there's so little inventory, right? There's not a whole lot out there to choose from. So if somebody's buying and you know their price range and you know what they can do and now you know their style because they've been able to show it to you, and now they can start looking at, hey, these are possibilities I can get done.
Yeah.
I'm going to talk to a couple builders and see if this is a possibility. So if they take some of those steps ahead of time, now when they go out and look at properties, they're going to be looking through a different lens and the possibilities become opened, and it opens up a choice of many more homes, being able to do a renovation loan on it than just walking in and accepting it as is.
Well, I have a current buyer now that she meal preps, and so everything is measured through the kitchen.
Right.
She's like, I don't like those pictures. That kitchen is too small. But now, I mean, there's a possibility.
Hey, yeah,
there's a possibility.
What if you bought the perfect home and you could make the kitchen exactly how you want it for your meal prepping?
Yes.
Yeah.
She goes, I need lots of counter space. Lots of counter space.
Yeah. And the pictures that we're seeing from before and after, I mean, they designed houses totally different 20 years ago, right?
Yes.
Especially the kitchens. Nowadays you've got these big islands and lots of counter space because we're hearing about food prepping all the time from different people, and that's what they do. And you're right. You've got 10 million things going at one time because they're cooking meals for a whole week, so they don't have to think about it, right?
Right.
But you need a kitchen to do that in, and it makes all the difference in the world. So now if you can visualize the kitchen she wants, you find her the house and she can create, or a builder or contractor could create the kitchen that she really wants in that house.
I'm going to be out there with her next week. So
there you go.
We'll probably look at some homes and see,
have her show and just have her go to like Pinterest or that House app or whatever. Just have her show you things that she is thinking she'd like her kitchen to look like.
Yeah.
And then have her bring those pictures with you as she's walking through a house and say, could you put this kitchen in here? Is it a possibility? Now, again, you have to remember that the sales price has to include the cost of the repairs for her total, approval price. But it just opens up more possibilities on what she can see and what she can get out there. So,
well, gosh, that went fast. The time went fast.
But again, it's exciting to talk about possibilities. It's not just your old, same old, or especially when there's low inventory, you feel like you're looking for a needle in a haystack, and just to know that you could really accomplish
so many options out there. I mean, this has created more option than what's out there.
It has.
I love it.
It's exciting. Yeah. So hopefully we'll get a lot more people wanting to do some renovation loans.
Yes.
We love doing them. And we've kind of revamped our systems and processes so that we're ready to do them smoothly. So hopefully you can find some clients that want to take advantage of them with us.
Absolutely. Might have one.
Perfect. Right. Then I guess we'll have to think about our next topic and see everybody shortly.
All right. We'll see you soon.
Coffee and Keys is brought to you by Darlene Kemp, VP, Senior Loan Officer, NMLS ID 173897. Atlantic Coast Mortgage, LLC is an equal housing lender. NMLS ID 643114. www.nmlsconsumeraccess.org. And Crystal Jacques, Realtor for both RE/MAX Allegiance, 4000 Virginia Beach Boulevard, Suite 164, Virginia Beach, Virginia 23452. Office phone 757-490-7300. And RE/MAX Professionals, 20,241 North 67th Avenue, Suite A1 Glendale, Arizona 85308. Office phone 623-362-3000. Each office is independently owned and operated and supports the Fair Housing Act and Equal Opportunity Housing.